Yes, we want to present our scientific work, risk and prospects related to the implementation of inclusive education in the regions of Russia during the COVID-19 pandemic. Distance education, of course, discussed in Russia over the past 20 years and also became a reality in April 2020. All the participants of the educational process right now faced up with the complex issues and difficulties which we need to solve right now. So I want to start our presentation with a short real interview with a student with disabilities. She kindly gave us to us. So okay, I think it was really short and informative and more, maybe more like for entertainment, but still it's like a real example how students with disabilities study and work in Russia during the educational process. So the pandemic not only affected education, but also radically changed it, forced to reconsider the foundation on which Russia education was based. All teaching technologies and tools, such as like online resources, interactive panels, conferences, systems, and other distance technologies, which were actively used by teachers to teach students with disabilities, outdated approach also changed and require a crucial reform. One of the most important way of organizing inclusive online education right now in the system of Russian education at all is purposeful independent student work. Such an approach, on one hand, can help students to open up in their work and avoid stereotypes. But I think, on the another hand, it requires the students to be self-organized, and sometimes it's impossible for students with disabilities to develop these characteristics. That's why one of the most important conclusion in this sphere is that pedagogical help is essential for students with disabilities right now. So um, the negative results of involving of inclusive education in general, which were presented by Russian professor of pedagogical science Strikalovой, you can see on the slide. There are some negative results, but the most important for us is the transformation of fundamental basics of education. I think it can be the most important because it's of course led the losing basic cognitive competences. General level of students' ability became decreased, and the skills of perceiving and analyzing information also decreased. And another one is technical lack of preparedness for digital learning. Unfortunately, in Russia, there is no such a great technical support for people with disabilities. So that's why we also emphasize this point like a great issue which need to be solved. And if we will remember our interview with this girl, she also told us that she have never used the special equipment instead of your hearing aid, and that's all. So the educational space can be also developed in some areas for people with disabilities. At first, It can be also creating online interactive programs and courses for increasing the digital literacy of teachers to help them to figure out complex system of online education and feel themselves maybe more flexible during the educational process. We also stress it a little bit because if we want to make the system more high quality, we also need to prepare our teachers and professors to become more involved in the process. The next one, I think it may be the more innovative way, the creating the video lessons or the real-time broadcast of the best online lessons held in the country. It should be also like free to everybody to use this system. Maybe it can be like a big platform. So we also need to develop students' activities with electronic sources of um, information, their meaningful application, analysis, and processing. But during, according to the statistic, we can see that the level of digital literacy of Russian teachers, especially young generation teachers, turned out to be quite high. So this is also the example, the video example of my group mate. It's the girl, she tried to teach the students. She is working in the sphere of speech therapy, and she made her classes online. So this is the example of articulation, the sound R, so we can see it right now. So we can hear that children are really involved in the process, and it's possible to make even the correction of sounds pronunciation during online system. Students right now have the opportunity to study at home, and especially for children with disabilities, and can be really, really helpful. Each student gets the opportunity to independently study in the course at a comfortable place for himself with the necessary number of repetitions and workouts, regardless of the level of training, social and geographical conditions. We also want to show you one of the most famous Russian platform. It's called uchi.ru, where students from different regions of Russia can study subjects in interactive form. This is also the statistics, and we can compare how many hours students with disabilities and with normal development need to, for example, finish the mathematics subjects for the second grade. For example, 2 hours, the students with normal development need to finish some tasks without mistakes. 11 hours is the average time for the middle knowledge student, and 125 hours students with disabilities need to finish the same task as students with normal development. Of course, during the real eye-to-eye, face-to-face tuition, it's impossible or very hard organized in the real classroom. But for example, during these platforms, it can be also very helpful and less stressful for students with disabilities to take their own time and spend as much as they want as they can. Also, the National Research University High School of Economics made the conclusion that big amount of students really enjoy being on the distance learning right now. Students know that they have more free time for hobbies and personal affairs. They spend a lot of time with their family, and of course, the family connection with students' disability is essential. It's like a great support for them. But at the same time, a lot of students emphasize that their life has deteriorated due to the lack of communication with teachers and peers. They have really a lot of difficulties in the implementation of the educational process. Another side effects of the digital technologies are also affects children's health. For example, worsening sleep, poor sleep pose, or blurred vision, like some problems with eyes and etc. And of course, digital technologies improve and simplify the education of children with disabilities. There is a great increase of quality of the organization, the individual work with the teachers. One of the famous Russian researcher, Verbitsky, made an establishment that this educational process right now can be really risky, especially for speech. The speech can degrade, and mindset and thinking can degrade at all, since the verbal speech reduced um, to use just the keyboards of the computer. So it's just double-faced situation when people really need to involve online education to help their children, to help their students, to make the education easier, to help and support them. But on another hand, it can be also very harmful for their physical health, for their mental health. And of course, nowadays we need to involve and make the connection between inclusive education and between the digital education online format. But we still need to improve more and more these sites and these aspects of education in Russia Federation at all. There is some information, our common information. If you need our email address or maybe just our QR codes, you can take them. So I think I can finish and be ready to answer the questions.